what was growing? Actually, where did you grow up? Where did you grow up first?
So I was born in Barbados, and my mom married an Antiguan, and so swiftly after she had me, I was back in Antigua. So I was only in Barbados for about 3 weeks, and then I was in Antigua.
Oh, okay. So the thing that I always ask everybody is that, how do you think your early life shaped you to become the person that you are today?
Very good question. I would say that my early life, I spent a lot of time outdoors. Even though I was in Antigua, I would go every summer I would go back to my grandmother's house, and she always had a number of animals. She had geese, she had ducks, dogs, cats. It was always animals there, and so I think that she actually nurtured my first loving for animals, because if you're staying with her, you're part of taking care of the animals as well. So I would always spend time with her doing that, and then I spent a lot of time reading as well. I guess that my mom was trying to instill in me the fact that she wanted me to be an academic, and I'm still in school today. But yeah, those two things I would say kind of always were around me. And then as I grew older, I started really liking the sciences. That was where I felt that was my bread, butter, and cheese, if you could say. And I really started liking bio, specifically physics a little bit, and then chemistry not really. And then once I had finally come into, I would say that once I reflected on these moments, that's what I would say is what got me to this point. Just the fact that I was always around animals. My mom used to, like, when I would be in getting stuff for Christmas, instead of asking for a doll, I'd be asking for like a book on snakes or something like that. And so it was, these little things were always there, but it's only now that I'm older that I'm realizing that they were laying the lessons down for me.
So how did you start working on the project in Redonda?
So pretty much on a whim. I was about to graduate from University of the West Indies, Cave Hill, and my mom was already like, Shanna, you need to start looking for jobs. Don't wait until you come home. I'm like, okay, fine. Because a lot of people had said that, ecology is not a degree that you can really get a job in. It's not something that is a very big business here in the Caribbean. And I wish I could go back to my former self and tell those people no, because there were actually quite a number of opportunities. And so I went online and I saw that the Environmental Awareness Group was offering a position. And the good thing about that position, they weren't asking for like a master's degree. They weren't asking for anything like that. They just wanted somebody with a strong environmental background who could get people motivated and could get people to feel some way about Redonda and get the work done. And I ticked all of those boxes. And so I applied via Skype, and I started my first day working on the 1st of August, 2016.
Okay, so in terms of, there was a restoration project going on there, and what kind of things, like, what is the place like in general? Obviously no one lives there.
No.
That's for sure, but I know that, all I know about it is that it had a big problem with rats.
Mm-hmm.
I know that the frigate birds lived there.
Mm-hmm.
I know that some people had dumped stuff there as well, negatively. Unfortunately, I know about some of the negative stuff, but what is it like actually being on the rock itself?
So Redonda is not at all, it's tough to describe, and my only thing is that it's not until you actually see it that you're like, wow. So imagine poor me trying to explain to my mom the job I'm getting, and I Google, what the first picture you see when you Google Redonda is, right? Cliff. her 21-year-old daughter about to go on this cliff and save goats. Like, it's crazy, but that's exactly what I did. It is extremely hot there, so now it's different, but when I got there, Redonda was literally falling into the sea, because there was no vegetation, there's no shade, so if it rains, you're stuck. There's no place for you to really shelter, so sometimes I just end up sitting down on the rocks in the sun, which my colleagues are sometimes like, Shanna, what are you doing? I'm like, I need a break. I'm just getting one where it is. But Redonda, when you walk on it, it's like a feeling of instability, because there's rocks So I always say you don't have a proper Redonda trip if you haven't fallen down or gotten a cut or something like that, because it really is quite dangerous to be over there. But the type of work that we do, conservation work, it's not easy. And so just think about somewhere hot, but with a lot of majesty and it has this kind of lore, because of course you have all of the birds around, and the birds are not they don't have any fear of humans because they haven't really had to interact with them, and so you pass them and they'll just like you're like, okay. You have lizards crawling over you. Lizards especially love me, mostly because I usually have on Crocs and they think that my toes look like food.
Okay.
But it's really interesting. I must say, it's one of the most unique places in the world that you could have the possibility to go. And I'm just so happy and proud that it's part of Antigua and Barbuda.
Okay, so what were the most urgent things that you had to attend to first?
All right, so straight out the gate, Redonda, it is a part of Antigua and Barbuda. Duh. But it is completely uninhabited, and the island had been known for having a lot of wildlife, but nobody really knew what was happening. So in 2012, my boss went over on a helicopter trip, and she realized that, wow, this island is really worth saving. Let's try and raise some money to be able to do the project. And so that's when I came in 2016, and Redonda is only 1 mile long. It's really, really small, but it is still an important bird and biodiversity area, meaning that there's significant population, specifically of the boobies. Because we have so many seabirds, it's actually regionally significant. I think it holds over 1% of the boobies for the region. Additionally, the island is home to 3 species of lizards that are found nowhere else in the world. They're all critically endangered. One of them it was only discovered actually in 2009. That's really, really new in science terms. And so because we had this island that was supporting all of this endemic wildlife, but at the same time it was being emaciated by all of these invasive species, we realized that we had to intervene, and we really wanted to show that just with a little bit of help, nature can really bounce back. And so the first step was to get the goats off of the island. And so Redonda had been known for goats. As you said, that's one of the things that you knew. Typically, Montserratians and Antiguans would go on the island, run around. I don't know. I mean, I've had to do it, but I wouldn't go to all that trouble to go sail across to Redonda, climb all the way to the top, set traps just to catch a goat. It sounds like entirely too much work for me, but people used to do that. And we think that we've traced their origin now, and we think that the goats are actually most closely related to other goats that are on Cape Verde off the coast of Africa, and some breeds in Cuba. And we think that the goats were just left there by the Spanish, when they're going around, just in case somebody got shipwrecked there or something. There was some sort of food source that would have been there. And so with the goats, we had this great plan where we were going to have a corral, and they were going to walk in, because we'd put water, because there's no standing water on the island, and so we would have this unique opportunity where they'd have this water and food suddenly available, and of course they're going to come in droves and we're going to catch them. These are wild animals, okay? And one thing I quickly learned in my job was that you have to be innovative and you have to have a lot of patience, because our goat relocation was supposed to be from September till December. Mm-hmm. During that time, do you know how many goats we caught?
Let me guess. Under 10?
We caught 1 goat. 1 goat, and we named him Juan, of course, because he was also the only one that we had. And these goats they're feral, they're wild, they're not going according to man, they're not going according to our schedule. And so it took a lot longer and a lot more innovative, because we were typically just having snares, where they walk, it's like a circle, and then they walk in and it catches their leg, and then you're able to get them. But they would just jump over the snares, kick them out of the way. They were not in it at all. And so it wasn't until later on, when we did the rat eradication, that we actually were able to get the goats by catching the kids, which and then of course brought the females, and then of course the males followed, and that's how we were able to get the goats off. So first step was goats, and the second step was rats, rat eradication, staying on the island and getting over there. And I mean, living for 2 months on an island that is completely deserted with no water, no electricity, no Wi-Fi, no anything. It was a lot. It was a lot, and especially because everybody was a volunteer. And we really had to keep ourselves motivated, but it felt so good because, like, my first night, I was in my tent and you could literally hear the rats outside of your tent.
Okay.
Like there's 6,000 of them over there, right? And yes, I see you're confused. You want to know how we guesstimate?
But how do you get rid of 6,000 rats?
How do you get rid of 6,000 rats? Through mixed methods. So first of all, you had to do the estimate. We basically put out 100 rat traps around and see how many we catch. It's like basically a formula for rat catching, and it's basically 100 trap nights. And yeah, the estimate we got was 6,000. Remember, I told you Redonda is only 1 square mile, only a mile long. And basically, we did a bunch of methods. The first one was ground based, which was the team that I was on, and we basically divide the island into lines. And every day, let's just say a rat's home range is about 50 meters, and we would go every 30 meters and put down rat bait. And this rat bait, it was a poison, of course, called claret, and it basically kills rats by internal bleeding. So it's a sad, slow way to go. It is a very sad, slow way to go, but we don't want anything that's too quick acting, because then, they'll realize that something is wiping out their numbers. And 2, we want something that we can quickly see what happened. And so every rat that died, we would bring it back home and dissect it, chop it up, and just check, because you can tell from the bruising on the organs and their bellies and bleeding, etc., internal bleeding, that you can tell that it was that they died from. And from dissecting the rats as well, we've realized that 90% of the females that we had caught and had died were either pregnant, nursing, or about to go into heat. And so if we had not intervened at that point, which was the driest part of the season, I should say, because the rats were really, really hungry, if we hadn't intervened at that point, then the population would have just bounced back up again. Started. So yeah, we did groundwork, so just putting down 4 cubes of rat bait in a 1.5 liter bottle with a tunnel, so that the rats can eat and go in and go out as they please. I have a little clip of them actually lining up. I hope that I'll be able to give you that. But they're able to go in and eat as much as they want to and then leave. Additionally, we did aerial methods, and so from the helicopter, hanging with the doors off, flinging bait onto the really, really tough parts. And then we also had mountain climbers, abseilers from the British Mountaineering Council, actually, who with the ropes were able to slingshot bait where they could. And then we would go down, hike all the way down to the shore and put it around the beach. And so we basically covered the island in rat bait, because we needed to make sure that there were absolutely no rats remaining.
I found a few things. Maybe that one you don't need. You can talk about a little bit about them.
Okay.
Because these are all resident species, as far as I know.
As far as you know.
Yeah.
Okay. Ooh. Oh, all my faves. Okay. So let's start off with Redonda. So Redonda has 3 endemic species of lizards, like I was saying, and all of them are critically endangered, meaning that if something was to happen to Redonda, their entire global population would be wiped out. And
wow.
Yeah, and that's why, because that's the only place in the world that you'll find them. And so we really try to make sure that things are going to be okay with them. So the most recent discovery is the Redonda Pygmy Gecko, and it's so new to science, it still doesn't have a scientific name, but Spherodactylus species to be determined, and this little pygmy gecko, they were really impacted by the rats, especially because they're so tiny as well. I mean, a little rat could just gobble this up anytime. But one of the cool things I find about this gecko is that, well, they only come out at night, of course. And if you do catch one and you hold it up to light, you can see right through them. Okay. It's really, really cool. Wow. Especially if the female is gravid, you can see the eggs through her, which I think is pretty cool. That is and they're really photogenic, as you can tell. This one kind of laying his hand up there. But we do we do have another type of lizard as well. This one is the Redonda tree lizard, and this one was the one that was most impacted by the rats. Simply because, one, imagine being a tree lizard on an island that doesn't have any trees. Yeah. Right? So your habitat, we would see exactly. So we would see them kind of jumping from rock to rock, and it would be so sad because you know that they are obviously not fulfilling their complete role. One of their favorite food actually is ants. They love to eat ants. And you know the ants prefer to be on tree bark, and so this picture I took actually while I was taking a break. Remember what I said? Yeah, this is my picture. All right, Google has provided me well. Yeah, so this is me. As you can see, this is me under one of the remnants of the trees, trying to take a little break, and then one of these guys just came up, and I was like, oh, this is cool. Let me take this picture. And so they do exhibit sexual dimorphism. So the males will have this kind of thick, think Hunchback of Notre Dame type thing, and the females will be much smaller, and they are actually able to color change. And so depending on, because it's on the clear bark, it's nice and light brown, but it can get really, really dark. Oh. So yeah, those are the two, and the last one is the Redonda ground dragon. Okay. Insert picture here. Which is, yes. Oh, okay. Yes. So that's that. Yes, that's that one. So that one is the most charismatic, I find. They're not afraid of anything, and they're basically the top predators right now on Redonda, now that we've gotten rid of the rats and the goats, and they are the most, they have actually doubled in number since we've got rid of the rats, and the tree lizard have tripled in number. Okay, so they're not going to have a big impact really, even though they're the main predators. Yeah, so no, we've caught them, we've seen them occasionally eating one of these, or if there's a smaller one that is acting up, then they'll potentially go for them. So they're a bit more bullyish, but they've bitten me before, and they really don't have a bite, so they're still limited there's still a limit to what they can actually eat. Yes, they don't look like they have teeth, do they? No, they don't. But funny enough, what makes me laugh is that men, when they reach a certain age, they're always worrying about their hairline. Yeah. Now, I look at this bird and it looks like it's got obviously it's not a hairline, but it just reminds me of a strong hairline. Is this native to Redonda, or is it? Oh yes, my brown boobies. Oh, I love them. Because you were talking about the boobies earlier. Yes. Yeah. So this one, I find when it comes to birds, you can always tell that birds are related to dinosaurs. You can tell, because when those chicks, so that's the hairless one, is the chick, and when they are first born, they look just like baby pterodactyls, like literally so hairless, so scary, but they do end up getting much more fluffy and cute. One thing, so this is the largest population that we have on Redonda, the brown boobies, and one cool thing about them is that you can actually tell their sex based on the tip of their beak. And so what color is the tip there? What, yellow? Look at the tip. Well, this one here? No, yeah, of that one. There's like a slight brown kind of and there's slightly more pinkish. Okay. Yeah. All right. If you look good, I feel like the lighting is not thing, but you see it, right? So it's slightly pink. So the pink is a female, and the boys, their own is slightly blue. Okay. Yes. Ah. Yeah. Cool, right? Yeah. And so that's basically it on Redonda. One big thing that I've been working towards doing is securing protected area designation, and so we'll definitely be updating you on that as soon as I can. But we are striving to get Redonda and its surrounding seas designated as a protected area in the next year. Fingers crossed. And because we know the impacts that we've seen on land. Like, we've gone from 17 species to over 88 species of vegetation now. Like I said, the lizard populations have been doubling and tripling. We're seeing land birds that have not been to the island in previous years returning. Yep, so we've seen American kestrel, so basically a type of falcon. We've seen banana quits, yellow warblers, etc. And so they're coming back to the island. And so since we had seen all those terrestrial impacts around the marine aspect as well, we always see turtles, always green turtles, hawksbills specifically, and then whales, we'll have whales passing through as well. And the diving that we've done, the last time we went down, we actually saw a really good stack of critically endangered acropora coral, and so that Elkhorn coral is critically endangered, and for some reason it's choosing Redonda as a place for it to grow. And so we really want to make sure we keep Redonda safe, and it can be used for research, education, and to show that, you know, protected areas can actually work pretty well.
Okay, so the last thing I want to talk about is obviously the national bird.
Yes.
Now.
Oh yes. So do you know that picture's from Redonda?
Yes.
Yes.
I learned something about this bird regarding, and I will give credit to I can't remember what I listened to, but it was something that you did. And I will give credit to the person once I know who it was, but you mentioned about their relationship or non-relationship with water. Could you explain a little bit about that?
And so one cool thing, so frigate birds are also on Redonda, just not in as heavy numbers as the other boobies. But one thing about frigate birds is that they're not true seabirds. And so even though they like to eat fish and they will nest in the mangroves, their feathers are not waterproof. And so basically, unlike the boobies, if it rains or something and we're passing, you can see their feathers ejecting the water from it. But poor frigate birds, they're unable to, and so their feathers, since they're not waterproof, if they get too damp, and that's why they can't dive. If they get too damp, they will just get so heavy that they will drown themselves, actually. And so that's why they have to teeth their food. So yes, frigate birds are actually kleptoparasitic, and so they basically steal food from other birds to be able to survive. And that's just the way that they have to live, because they have no choice.
Okay, so what crossed my mind is actually, before we move on, are they in a good, healthy state in terms of population at the moment?
So, Barbuda holds our largest population of frigate birds. They hold about 10,000 pairs. After the hurricane, we had seen very, very few. It was only about 200 pairs, I think, that we had seen. But in April this year, we went back to Barbuda and we got 8,937.
Oh, wow.
If you want to know how to count frigate birds, separate side note, if you want to, it takes a lot. Basically, all of us focus on different things. So like me, I did adult females. Somebody will do adult males. Somebody will do juveniles first year, juveniles second year, and you basically all count at the same time.
Oh, wow.
It's crazy. Yeah, so it's a rough estimate, but we got about 8,937. And the ones on Redonda, they're doing well. Again, because Redonda did not have many trees, there was not much habitat for them. So we think that as the trees are coming up, that there will be more habitat for them and their population can probably grow. But yeah, they're doing well. Okay. They're doing well because around Redonda there's always fish, and it's actually sad sometimes to see them fighting the boobies because, you know, the boobies have been fishing all day. They've been out all day searching for food just for this big huge bird to come and bully them to get their food. So it is sad. They do get through. They're very good at what they do, stealing food. They're very good at teething. It's sad sometimes, man, but that's the circle of life.
Well, like most of the Eastern Caribbean, tourism is a big thing, obviously.
Yes.
And I'm just thinking of also the sad thing about tourism is that obviously it gears towards people that are not local. But in terms of education, that would go to people that were local as well.
Yeah.
So do you feel there's a lot of tourism and education potential with Redonda?
With Redonda, most definitely. And so because Redonda is so far away, and I mean, hey, we can only get over there by helicopter, so that's already pricing a number of people out of going there. I had the idea of, instead of going to Redonda, bringing Redonda to the people. And so last year we embarked on Redonda on the Road, which was a photographic exhibition. Basically, I got some, as you can see, we have some stunning shots of Redonda, basically printed them out huge and had a moving photographic exhibition. And so we would be at bars, so while people drinking, they're getting their education about Redonda. We'd have it at fairs, at museums, at restaurants, that kind of thing. Just really bringing Redonda to the people. And with that, I think we only ran it from November to January, and we got 4,000 people.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And it's so amazing because people can, and one thing I wanted to do since I started my project, I wanted to make sure that people knew something was going on in Redonda, and they knew that Redonda was special. That was always the takeaway I wanted to have. And so being able to just interact with people for, like, you know, a good 5 minutes, a good 10 minutes, just letting them know so that, yes, they haven't been to Redonda, but they know what it looks like, and they know what's there, and they know what needs to be kept safe. So definitely with environmental education, I'm a big supporter of that. In addition to Redonda on the Road, I also do quite a lot of work in primary schools, because I really believe like if you don't get it in them when they're early, then that's it. So really love going and doing school presentations. I walk with like coloring pages for kids to color their own boobie, and then I let them also do things where like I explained the Redonda situation before, and then I get them to draw a picture of what they think Redonda is going to look after now that we've gotten the rats and the goats off. So really, really good. And we're actually currently working with the Ministry of Education to be able to include some things about Redonda in the curriculum so that they have to learn, instead of using, I don't know, a hawk. Well, we have hawks. Instead of using like a bald eagle and a lion in food chains, getting them to use the ground lizard or the racist snake. I make such a good hand model. I really think that I have a calling. You can't tell, but I'm a celebrity. You can't tell. But yeah, it really, because we have so many important species back at home, we really try to impress upon people to use those species and to gain an appreciation for them. With the tourist side, Redonda offers an experience that is completely unique, truly one of the most unique places in the world. And so we've definitely spoken with the Ministry of Tourism there already about doing like a package, and how they would market it to, of course, so like as adventure tourism type thing. We have had some tourists go there already. We had one guy he was one of those guys, him and his mother, one of those people that mark out just visiting islands. And so he had come on a cruise to Antigua, heard about Redonda. 2 weeks later, he flew back down from, I think he was from Belgium.
Oh, wow.
Him and his 90-year-old mother. So we don't discriminate. We don't discriminate by age or anything.
Yeah.
Once you mind you, disclaimer, she just got off the helicopter, sat down, and then got back on.
Okay.
But she got there. That's the point. She got there. She was able to see the lizards. And so we have had, I think I would say about 3 or 4 trips over specifically for tourism. And one thing with Redonda, we know that it will never be like a very heavily visited tourist destination, but for the people who are into conservation tourism or into ecotourism and want to see a conservation success story, we're definitely very interested in getting them.
Okay. Environmental friendliness. I'm sure since your arrival in the UK, you have seen a certain group getting on in the streets of London called Extinction Rebellion.
They have a very good Extinction Rebellion group here, actually.
Okay, so whether people agree with how they operate or not, obviously the environment is something that means a lot to you personally. You're very into that. Now, one thing I know that's quite frightening is that across the whole Caribbean, there have been hurricanes recently. Obviously, Abaco was the massive one that happened in the Bahamas.
Hurricane Dorian.
And a lot of the factors are to do with, obviously, not taking care of the environment, having an impact. And unfortunately, a lot of that is happening from the so-called, I would say in quotation, bigger nations affecting the smaller nations. And I wanted to ask about, obviously, they need to do stuff in order to help the rest of everybody else. But what is it in Antigua or Barbados or the whole Caribbean that people can do to actually help? Because I don't think that's one of the things that are high on the agenda in the Caribbean.
Yeah, it's so being environmentally conscious is now becoming the cool thing to do, right? I would say that as somebody who has witnessed what happened in 2017 with Hurricane Irma with our sister island Barbuda, it was
horrific.
It was like literally lost for words thinking back to the first time we got off the boat. And so myself and a couple of my co-workers, we were part of the team to do the environmental impact assessment, and it was devastating to say the least about what we saw. And one thing that we realized is that these storms are going to continue to increase and I mean in 2017 Irma was the strongest, what it was, category 5 plus, like one of the strongest storms ever to hit. And then 2019 Hurricane Dorian is even stronger, right? And that's only 2 years. And so I'm hoping that the wheels are starting to turn in people's minds about the fact that these issues are completely real, and these hurricanes are only going to come stronger, faster, and even in higher intensity. And so one thing that we can do as small island developing states, I know it's very difficult because we think, hey, we're not the ones who are doing all of the environmental damage, but we still have to take it upon ourselves to know that we are doing what we can ourselves. And so Antigua I would definitely say is blazing the trail. We have, of course, styrofoam banned. We have plastic bags banned. And one of the things that you had to kind of do, and I will not say it was easy as part of as somebody who knows the people who were responsible for implementing those bans. It hasn't been easy, and even the education that I do in schools with kids about plastic bags and stuff, it's not easy. But think about long term, and I always try to, when I'm talking about environmental education, I try to tell people long term. And so when you think about the fact that you're going to have an entire generation of children, or entire generation period of people coming up without any plastic bags, without ever knowing about styrofoam, it's amazing, and it's really a step in the next direction. And so another thing that we've done in Antigua, of course, we have our bins, and so we do have a recycling company. It's just that they can't recycle some things, but it's still there. And one thing I would really try and challenge everybody to do this year is be more environmentally conscious in 2020. That's actually one of my goals for next year, because I will say that in the Caribbean it's a lot more difficult, because you kind of have to use what you have. Up here in England, it's great because everything can be recycled. You can look for the vegan, cruelty-free, sustainable products, all that kind of thing. It's much easier up here. But I would tell everybody, with your purchases, try to be more environmentally conscious. When we just had a big drama happening in Antigua over this boa that I don't know if you saw what happened, but basically there was this boa on the loose, and Antigua was freaking out, and they were like, Shanna, we need you. Shanna, please save us. I'm like, now y'all want me. Now y'all realize that you need somebody environmentally conscious. But for example, one of the big things that we have and we do on our offshore islands, and so I should say the NGO that I work with, the Environmental Awareness Group, we don't only work on the mainland, we do a lot of work on the offshore islands. And so on the offshore islands, that's where most of our species are finding refuge. And of course, things can get over there, specifically because in terms of camping, where the racer snake is on the offshore islands, in terms of camping, people can bring so many things with them: African snails, mongooses, fire ants, Cassie. All of these things are invasive, and things can either be intentionally brought or they can be unintentionally brought. Like when we tell people, please check your boat and see if you have a rat in there, or check your tent and see if there's any rats in there, they kind of like get offended. But the thing is, these animals are made for stowing away, made for fitting in tight spaces. And one single pregnant female rat can undo the thousands of dollars worth of work that we have done literally within a month. So one big issue in terms of importing things, so whether it be boas, or if you're importing sand for your this or something for your plants, really try to make sure that you're not bringing in anything that's not supposed to be there, because they can really have very detrimental consequences. And so also try to just support your environmental organizations. We are typically very low in staff and low in terms of revenue, and just any little thing that you can do, and you can say, you know what, I'm donating to this environmental organization is something that I am doing as being an environmental steward. Picking up that little bit of trash you see on the beach that's gonna go in there and choke the turtles in the sea. Just all doing a little thing. So doing any little thing that you can get done to have a very big environmental impact is the move.
This might be a minor thing or a small thing, but it did cross my mind. One thing I realised when I do go to the Caribbean, and even Caribbean people that live here and have lived here for a while, is that you could offer them a shredder, but they still want to burn stuff. So
yes, we are very set in our ways, and I mean,
it's like, so what is the impact of burning? Because it's like, I've got to ask that, and I know what it is, but just for people that are listening, because they might not think, it's a minor thing, you burn stuff all the time. Yeah. But why is burning something that you really shouldn't be doing?
So burning, anything to do with fireworks, anything like that, air pollution, people. Of course, burning, it is releasing chemicals into the atmosphere that are then going to thin the ozone layer and then make more sun come and burn us up. Again, people, long-term thinking. So that little thing that you're burning, like my mom is the same way as well. She loves to burn. I think it's just one of those things that people do. But trying to minimize your burning, people, it really has a very bad environmental impact. And you might not see it. That's one thing I don't like about the environment sometimes. It takes so long for things to happen. Like when one big issue we have in the Caribbean region right now is unsustainable development, and the fact that, we feel like we have to chop down everything and then plant it back. What's gonna happen while this stuff hasn't grown back? Especially when it comes to mangroves and stuff that are supposed to be protecting our houses and our communities. What's gonna happen when we chop all of them down? I hate that the environment takes so long to show what's gonna happen. I wish that it would just show it instantaneously, but it's long term.
It's funny you talk about mangroves, because I was just about to mention about stuff like dredging. And last time I was going home, this person's ridiculous. They tried to come through with a conch shell and a coral reef. Obviously the coral reef's dead, but I'm just thinking a lot of the breaking down of coral reefs is having an impact. Could you just explain what dredging, the breaking down of coral reefs, what kind of impact it's having?
Right.
On
So for people who don't know what dredging is basically when you are using think about like a backhoe but underwater, and just digging out, basically scraping up everything off of the seafloor. Specifically, yes. It is cringeworthy. Specifically, in areas like around the Caribbean, especially Antigua, we are privy to a lot of dredging, because I don't even know why people dredge. Really, it's for mostly for building purposes. But dredging can be really, really, really harmful, because you already have coral reefs that are being impacted by global warming. The fish are, and I always tell people, that's one thing I push: do not eat parrotfish, do not eat any chub. We need them to make the sand. Okay, for every little bit of stuff that the parrotfish scrapes off of the coral reef, they're pooping out sand, which we need to walk on, and the tourists need to come. It's all long-term thinking. That's my trend that we're going through. So yeah, dredging can be really harmful because it's basically taking up everything on the seafloor. And then of course, I don't have to break down the whole circle of life thing, but you need the adults to be able to have their kids, and then you have the mangroves, which they typically dredge nearby. You have the mangroves that are serving as nurseries for these little fish, these little crustaceans, and once they're gone as well, basically the whole ecosystem collapses, and it takes years to recover. Like all coral reefs in Antigua were really badly impacted by Hurricane Louis in 1995, and they still have not recovered. Wow. In 2000 and in 25 years, right? They still haven't recovered. And so although it might seem like a quick, short thing, small thing, it is really a very big thing, because it has very long-term impacts and outcomes. Yeah.
Because you're pretty much the environmentalist, what are your eating habits like?
I'm not a vegan.
You're not? Oh, what a surprise. Oh, that is a surprise. Well, it's not, because you're a Caribbean woman.
No, I will say, since I've been up here, I have made a lot more vegetarian type food choices. I realized I'm not completely dependent on meat, but I'm sorry. I don't eat goat. That's one thing I don't eat. When we were on Redonda, we had to literally carry the goats in our hands. I can't be hugging a little kid in the morning and then eating it down, eating goat water at night. So I don't eat goat, but everything else, yes.
The scholarship. What made you want to do the scholarship, and how did you get on it? What was the process like? Tell us a bit about that.
Okay, so for my Chevening scholarship, I will just say it was a very long process, a very, very long process. I had always wanted to get my master's because I didn't want to be, out-competed because I didn't have it, even though I had the experience. And I definitely needed somebody to pay for it. And so my really good coworker, Sasha, she was the one who got it last year from Antigua. It's only 2 people that get it from Antigua, which when I went to the orientation, it was kind of daunting because you have all these other countries that have like 50 360 people, but it's based on population, of course. And since Antigua only has 90,000, we only get 2 people. And I realized that she had gotten it, and then another one of my friends from UE, Christopher Harper, he was able to get it as well. And so I had seen them getting it, kind of seeing their journey and seeing what Chevening was about and the great, valuable opportunity it was. And so I started to do my research. And so I applied, I got my essays together. You basically have to write 4 essays, one about why Chevening should pick you and your leadership potential. The next one is about networking, any networking experience you have. The third one is about why you want to study in the UK and what those courses, the courses that you've picked, what they mean to you. And the last one is about where you see yourself in the future. Once they've given you the scholarship, what will you be doing when you get back home? And after that, so I applied on the 6th of November 2018, and then around February realized that I was picked for the interviews, and then you find out fully maybe in about May that you've gotten through. And so I was elated. It's so many people that apply. I think it's about 52,000 people that apply every year, and it's only like 1,100 of us that are there. So it's like 2 or 3% of people that they choose. And so like even being selected or as being worthy of being part of that scholarship was amazing for me. And it has been a whirlwind. I will say that things in the UK are very fast paced. It was a lot to get here. I tore my ACL right before I came. I know. In August on Juve morning.
Where else?
Juve morning.
Your carnival was done.
Juve morning was the end of my carnival for me. And so I tore my ACL in August, and I was like, oh gosh, should I pull out because this is just too much? And because I was on crutches and everything. I couldn't walk. I couldn't bend my knee. And through God's grace, I'm here. And I had to get like airport assistance, wheelchair assistance to get up here and all of that. And it was a long time coming, but I was able to get here. My course, I really am happy to be here. I'm very happy of the course I chose. I'm here at the University of Kent in Canterbury, and I am studying with the Durrell Institute for Conservation Ecology, doing conservation biology masters. And one thing about my field of work is that it has typically been very science, and even my undergrad in ecology, it was just science. And I've realized from being in the real world that you need that balance of natural science and social science, because we have so many, like EAG, we do so much work with communities and that kind of thing, and policymakers, government, and so you have to be able to get the people aspect as well. And so this course has really blended the two of them together. I've had the opportunity to go to Jersey as well and see the zoo, and Jersey, they're really instrumental, because when our racist snake, insert picture again, when our racist snake had went down to only having 50 individuals, they were one of the organizations that swooped in and were able to come and to take some, just in case those ones in situ had died. And so it has been really good. I am about to be writing my dissertation pretty soon. Oh my gosh.
How many words?
So in science it's not too bad. It's about 5,000 words. Yeah.
Nice.
It's science. It's science. And so I will be doing my research, new photo, on the Barbuda warbler, which is our sole endemic bird. And so sole endemic snake, sole endemic bird, as opposed to other countries. Like one of my friends from Guyana, they have like 50 endemic birds. I'm like, well, Antigua, we have one. And right after the hurricane, we were really nervous about this Barbuda warbler, because we hadn't seen it in 2 weeks after the hurricane had come, and it wasn't until that 3rd week that we were actually able to see one. And like I said, with hurricanes becoming more prevalent, climate change, and the types of developments that are slated for Barbuda, I'm really interested in discovering where the most important areas for those habitats and how we can protect them to make sure that we do species persistence of the Barbuda warbler. And so I'll be going home to do my field work in Barbuda pretty soon, and so I'm really looking forward to it. But Chevening has really opened my eyes. Actually, majority of the Chevening scholars that are here because of the program that I'm in, because it's such a good program. And so we've had our orientation, we had all of the Caribbean flags, like we were singing One Love. They were like, oh, we can see the Caribbean people are here, because Caribbean people, we can't just be there and be silent, right? Know. So we had to bring the vibes. So it's been a really good journey. I can't believe that first semester is over. Time is flying. Graduation is in November. It all feels too quick. But yeah, it's been quite a lot moving to England. Warm-blooded. I mean, when I came here, unlike everybody else that used to be at home drinking bush tea, I was too hot, and so I would never drink tea. So I'm up here freezing,
drinking tea.
and I have been forced. I've been forced to start drinking tea and coffee. Like at nights, I'm wondering, like, who are you, Shanna? Like, this is not you. This is not that girl. Who is she? But yeah, it's been a lot. It's getting colder now. I'm not quite sure what's gonna happen to me in January and February. But yeah, it's really been a great experience to be up here, and also to be in a class with so many people who have so many different backgrounds. Some of them fresh out of university, some of them, like me, who have worked for a bit. But I think in our class we have 24 nationalities, and we can speak between us 48 languages.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so it's a really, really diverse class, and I'm looking forward to being part of this level of conservationist that comes out of it, because at the end of the day, I'm definitely going back home, because I don't believe in that brain drain thing. Okay. And I feel like we have so many things at home to offer that I will continue to show people about what's important and why being environmentally conscious is the way to go.
Okay, so the last question of this whole ask is, I always kind of long-winded for everybody, but I'll just do my normal long-winded thing. Is that eventually all of us will pass away. That's just life. Or maybe we can talk about from a perspective when you're 95 years old and you have all your little family members of 4 generations around you or whatever.
Yeah.
At that time, what do you want your legacy to be? What kind of legacy do you want to have left? Not maybe in Antigua, maybe the whole Caribbean, maybe the world.
Yeah, maybe the world. Okay. So I've already started kind of thinking about this and what I want to be known for. And I mean, at 21, I saved 3 species from extinction. I feel like I can't really top that. I might have reached my peak. But I want to be remembered for being the voice of the people. But in this time, the voice,
very much like a radio
yes.
station.
No copyrights from Observer, please. But I want to be known as, instead of being the voice of the people, but being the voice of the animals. Like, I feel I have a really big, I really feel very strongly about environmental things, as you can tell, and the species, they can't speak for themselves. And so I feel that I can be a voice for why it's important, what we need to do for them, and how we can really help them. And I also hope that I'll be able to inspire people to be more environmentally conscious, because in the Caribbean, we don't have to wait for things to be trickled on to us. We can be the pioneers in it. And then, of course, lastly, I hope that I live long enough for when the apocalypse happens because of all of the climate stuff, and I can be like, I told you guys, that the world was gonna come to an end if you didn't recycle. I told you guys. That's just me being silly, but I really hope that we'll be able to, at this point in our lives, we basically have 50 years before the planet is kaput. And so I really hope that I will not have to say that the apocalypse happened and that I told you so. But yeah, I want to be remembered for being an environmental activist and leaving a legacy for people to follow that is, be happy, live well, be environmentally conscious. Yeah, that's all.